In the mundane rhythm of Lincoln High, the days blended into each other, marked only by the ringing of the bell and the predictable chatter of students. The social hierarchy was unspoken yet understood. Each student had their place, their role in this microcosm of teenage life. It was a crisp Monday morning when he arrived, shattering the monotonous cadence of high school life. The new student, Ethan, was an enigma wrapped in the ordinary. He had an air about him that was both unsettling and intriguing. He was of average height, with jet black hair that seemed to absorb the light around him, and eyes that rarely met anyone else's, always staring into the distance, lost in thought, or perhaps lost in a world unknown. Alex, a junior with a quiet demeanor and a keen eye for the overlooked details of high school life, watched from a distance. Unlike his peers, who thrived on drama and excitement, Alex preferred the background, observing the world through the lens of his camera, capturing moments others failed to see. The bullies of Lincoln High, a group of students who thrived on asserting dominance, quickly took notice of Ethan. He was different, an outsider, and in their narrow world of high school politics, he was an easy target. They started with verbal jabs, taunting him about his quiet nature, his clothes, anything they could latch onto. Ethan, however, remained silent, his expression unchanging, as if the words were raindrops falling on an impermeable surface. Alex watched these interactions with a sense of unease. There was something about Ethan that didn't quite fit. It wasn't just his silence or his isolation. It was as if he was there, but not entirely present, like a shadow that only partially exists in the physical world. As the days passed, peculiar occurrences began to ripple through Lincoln High. A locker would slam shut with no one near it. A chill would sweep through a classroom despite the heating being on, and faint, indistinct whispers echoed in the hallways when they were seemingly empty. The students joked about the school being haunted, but Alex sensed something more. Each strange event seemed to orbit around Ethan, as though he was the epicenter of these unexplainable phenomena. One afternoon, as the final bell rang, Alex noticed Ethan heading towards the old, rarely used wing of the school. Driven by curiosity, he followed, his camera in hand. The corridor was dim, lit only by the occasional flicker of the aging fluorescent lights. Alex watched as Ethan stopped in front of a dusty, long-forgotten trophy case. For a moment, it seemed as if Ethan was communicating with someone, his lips moving in a hushed, silent conversation. A sudden chill ran down Alex's spine as he snapped a photo, the camera's flash momentarily cutting through the corridor's gloom. In that brief burst of light, he saw Ethan's reflection in the trophy case glass. But there was something deeply wrong about it. Ethan's reflection was distorted, his face twisted in an expression of sorrow and pain, so at odds with his usual impassive demeanor. Startled, Alex stepped back, his heart racing. He looked up to find Ethan gone, vanished as if he was never there. Alex stood alone in the silent corridor, the echoes of his own breath the only sound. He looked down at his camera, contemplating whether to review the photo he had just taken. The quiet of the corridor was suddenly broken by a faint, melancholic melody, like a distant music box playing a forgotten tune. The sound seemed to seep from the walls themselves, surrounding Alex in a cold embrace. He felt an overwhelming sense of sadness, a sorrow too deep and ancient for a high school corridor. Fighting the urge to flee, Alex steadied his breath and slowly made his way out of the old wing, the melody following him until he stepped back into the lively world of the main school building, where the sound was drowned out by the laughter and chatter of students, oblivious to the mysteries lurking in their midst. Alex knew one thing for certain. Lincoln High was harboring a secret, and Ethan was at the heart of it. As he mingled back with the crowd, the camera heavy in his hands, he realized that this was just the beginning of a story that was waiting to be unraveled. One afternoon, the school's atmosphere shifted. In the bustling cafeteria, where laughter and conversations melded into a cacophony of teenage life, a sudden accident occurred. One of the prominent bullies, Derek, known for his harsh words and intimidating demeanor, slipped inexplicably on the spotless floor. His tray clattered loudly as he fell, drawing a hush over the room. His arm twisted unnaturally beneath him, and the subsequent diagnosis was a broken bone. Whispers of bad luck circulated, but Alex's thoughts lingered on Ethan, who had been sitting quietly in a corner, his presence almost invisible. Days turned into weeks, as a series of bizarre incidents began to target those who had tormented Ethan. Another bully, caught in a freak locker door slam, ended up with a bruised eye. It seemed every tormentor of Ethan faced some form of misfortune. The incidents were brushed off as coincidences, yet the pattern was undeniable. Whispers of a curse started to spread, a shadowy tale that twisted through the hallways of Lincoln High. Alex, with his observant nature, began to piece together the unsettling pattern. Each incident, though seemingly accidental, was somehow linked to Ethan. It was as if an unseen force was acting in his defense, a guardian angel or perhaps something more sinister. Driven by a blend of curiosity and concern, Alex embarked on an informal investigation. He started with the school's archive, sifting through yearbooks and old newspapers, searching for any clue that might shed light on Ethan's enigmatic nature. His search, however, turned up nothing. It was as if Ethan had materialized out of thin air. Alex's next step was observation. He spent days subtly following Ethan, documenting his interactions, or rather the lack thereof. Through the lens of his camera, Alex captured the isolation that enveloped Ethan, his detachment from the world around him. As the autumn leaves danced in the cold wind outside, Alex witnessed something that chilled him to the bone. In the empty library, where Ethan often secluded himself, a book inexplicably flew off a shelf, pages fluttering wildly as it landed with a thud on the ground. Ethan, however, did not even flinch or glance at the book. It was as if such occurrences were normal for him, just another part of his existence. He could no longer dismiss the events surrounding Ethan as mere coincidences. There was something deeply unnatural at play, something that defied the normalcy of high school life. The air at Lincoln High began to grow thick with anxiety and fear. The once fearless bullies now tread carefully, their bravado replaced by a cautious wariness. The school, once a battleground for adolescent hierarchies, had become a theater of the unknown, with Ethan at the focal point of this brewing storm, remaining as enigmatic and isolated as ever. Alex, driven by a mix of intrigue and a sense of duty, intensified his investigation. He spent hours scouring the internet for anything that could explain the bizarre phenomena linked to Ethan. His breakthrough came unexpectedly, hidden within the depths of a local online forum dedicated to town history and folklore. A post caught his eye. It spoke of a student who had attended Lincoln High years ago, one who had faced relentless bullying and tragically took his own life. The description of the student sent chills down Alex's spine. It matched Ethan in an uncanny way. Digging deeper, Alex found an old yearbook in the school library. There he saw it, a photo of the student from the past. The resemblance to Ethan was striking. The same deep, haunting eyes, the same distant, pensive look. It was as if Ethan was a ghost from the past, replaying his tragic story in the halls of Lincoln High. Fueled by this revelation, Alex began to connect the dots. The accidents, the eerie incidents, they weren't random. They were a manifestation of Ethan's vengeful spirit, a ghost seeking retribution against those who embodied the cruelty he had faced. Alex, realizing the gravity of the situation, knew he had to act. He couldn't just stand by and watch the school be consumed by fear and paranoia. He decided to confront the bullies, to make them see the pain they had caused and urge them to seek forgiveness. His confrontation, however, was met with a mix of disbelief and hostility. The bullies refused to accept the supernatural explanation, dismissing Alex's claims as mere superstition. But the spirit of Ethan, or whatever it had become, was growing stronger, more emboldened. The encounters escalated from mere accidents to terrifying experiences. Lockers would violently rattle with no one near them. Chilling whispers echoed in empty classrooms, and shadows moved with malicious intent. The bullies started experiencing haunting nightmares, waking up screaming in the dead of night, their minds tormented by unseen horrors. Then, one evening, as darkness enveloped the school, a group of bullies found themselves locked inside the gymnasium. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Then, a bone-chilling cold swept through the room, and a spectral figure appeared before them. It was Ethan, or rather, the tormented soul that once was Ethan. His figure was ethereal, his face a mask of sorrow and rage. His voice, a hollow echo, filled the room, recounting his tale of misery and despair. His words a lamentation of a life cut short by cruelty. The bullies, frozen in terror, could do nothing but listen as the spirit of Ethan confronted them with the truth of their actions. In the wake of the spectral encounter in the gymnasium, a profound change swept through Lincoln High. The bullies, once the unchallenged tormentors of the hallways, now walked with a haunted, introspective demeanor. Their eyes, previously alight with mischief and malice, now reflected a deep, unsettling understanding of the pain they had inflicted. The school, so recently plagued by an atmosphere of fear and superstition, found itself in a state of quiet reflection. Alex, deeply affected by the revelations about Ethan and the ensuing events, felt a responsibility to bring closure not only to Ethan's tormented spirit, but also to the school community. He realized that for peace to truly be restored, there needed to be an acknowledgement of the pain caused by bullying and a collective effort to heal those wounds. Determined, Alex approached the school administration with a proposal. He suggested organizing an assembly, a forum where the story of Ethan could be shared, and the issue of bullying could be openly addressed. His idea was met with some hesitation at first, but the recent eerie occurrences had left their mark, and the school agreed, hoping it might help dispel the lingering sense of unease. The assembly day arrived, a gray, overcast day, as if the sky itself was solemn in anticipation. The gymnasium, the site of the most chilling manifestation of Ethan's spirit, was now filled with students and faculty, all present with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Alex took the stage, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked out at the sea of faces, then began to speak. His words were clear and strong, recounting the story of Ethan, a student who once walked these halls, who suffered in silence, and whose pain had echoed beyond the grave. He spoke of the curse that had befallen the bullies, a manifestation of Ethan's unaddressed agony and longing for justice. As Alex spoke, a hush fell over the crowd. Faces in the audience, some streaked with tears, reflected a myriad of emotions, from guilt to empathy, from fear to resolve. When he finished, the silence was profound, a collective moment of introspection and realization. Then, one by one, the bullies stood up. In an act of unexpected vulnerability, they began to share their feelings. They spoke of their regret, their own inner battles, and their newfound understanding of the pain they had caused. It was a raw, emotional outpouring, a public act of contrition that seemed to cleanse the air of its heaviness. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at Lincoln High began to heal. The shadows of fear receded, and the unexplained phenomena ceased. Ethan's spirit, it seemed, had found the acknowledgement and justice it sought, and with it, a path to peace. The school transformed, with students forming new alliances, reaching out across social divides, and creating a more inclusive environment. The legacy of Ethan's story became a catalyst for change, a reminder etched into the collective memory of Lincoln High. As the school year progressed, Alex often found himself in the old wing of the school, the place where he first felt Ethan's presence. There, amidst the quiet and the dust, he felt a sense of communion with the spirit that once roamed these halls. He understood that Ethan's story was more than a tale of haunting. It was a lesson in empathy, a call to recognize and address the unseen wounds inflicted by cruelty and indifference. Ethan's spirit no longer lingered in the shadows, but his story continued to resonate, a poignant echo in the heart of Lincoln High, reminding all who pass through its halls of the profound impact one life can have and the power of compassion to heal and transform. In the heart of suburban sprawl, Crestwood High stood as a beacon of modern education, its halls pulsating with the relentless rhythm of digital progress. This was a place where traditional textbooks had yielded to tablets, blackboards to interactive whiteboards, and whispered gossip to instant messaging. Amidst this digital utopia, a clique of students reigned supreme, not through academic achievement, but through the tyranny of bytes and bandwidth. Their names were a roll call of infamy. Adrian, the de facto leader with a smirk that could freeze blood. Lila, whose wit was as sharp as her lack of empathy. Theo, the silent tech maestro, more at home with code than conversation. And Jenna, a social media puppeteer, weaving narratives with the ease of a seasoned novelist. Their chosen quarry was an unassuming boy named Elliot. Shy and introspective, Elliot found solace in books and solitude, a stark contrast to the connected world of his peers. In the eyes of Adrian and his crew, Elliot's reluctance to engage in the online sphere made him an ideal target, a blank canvas on which to project their digital malice. The bullying was relentless. Cyber taunts and digital humiliation became part of Elliot's daily life. Each day, a gauntlet of online abuse that left invisible scars. As the harassment intensified, so did the unsettling occurrences around Elliot's online presence. His social media updates, once rare and innocuous, morphed into cryptic dispatches of despair. But it was the anomalies that were truly disconcerting. Images in his posts that seemed to warp and twist for just a fraction of a second, or the faint, almost inaudible echoes that lingered after his rare voice messages. But these were mere harbingers of the horror to come. It was in the small details that the true terror began to seep through. Followers of Elliot reported seeing their screens flicker with shadowy figures when viewing his profile, while others spoke of messages that seemed to be typed in real time, only to disappear before they could be fully read. The days at Crestwood High grew heavier, as a sinister pall seemed to drape itself over the digital landscape. It was in this charged atmosphere that the tragic turn occurred. Elliot, the silent sufferer of Adrian's clique's relentless cyber torment, was found dead. The details were sparse, whispered in hushed tones among the student body. His demise was sudden, shrouded in mystery, sparking rumors that ranged from the plausible to the paranormal. The reality, however, was far more harrowing. Elliot had succumbed to the weight of his despair, a life extinguished far too soon. In the aftermath, a superficial wave of remorse washed over Adrian, Lila, Theo, and Jenna. They played their parts well, donning masks of grief and shock, their expressions of condolence as hollow as their empathy. But as the days passed, the facade began to crack, revealing the unchanged, unrepentant faces beneath. It was during this time of feigned mourning that the first encounter with the digital phantom occurred. It began with Jenna, who received a distorted image in her inbox, so twisted it was barely recognizable. Yet something in its chaos struck a nerve, a familiarity that sent chills down her spine. Then came the messages to Theo, texts that appeared to be coded in a language of static and dissonance. Lila's live streams were interrupted by fleeting visages of contorted faces, and Adrian's phone seemed to buzz with notifications from a number that was just an endless string of zeros. Their initial response was dismissal, attributing these occurrences to a distasteful prank exploiting their classmate's death. But as the days rolled into weeks, the eerie phenomena surrounding Adrian, Lila, Theo, and Jenna intensified, transforming their once dominant digital domain into a haunting landscape of fear and uncertainty. The messages and images that initially seemed like cruel pranks began to escalate into something far more menacing. Jenna received a video clip where, amidst the pixelated chaos, she could make out a scene from one of their online bullying sessions, a moment where Elliot was reduced to tears. The clip was distorted, the audio a cacophony of garbled noises, but the message was unmistakable. Theo's experiences were even more chilling. His devices would spontaneously display lines of code that seemed to write themselves, forming sentences that echoed Elliot's last online posts. The words would appear and disappear, leaving Theo questioning his own sanity. Lila's live streams turned into nightmarish exhibitions. Anonymous accounts would flood the chat with cryptic messages, while the camera seemed to capture fleeting shadows lurking just beyond her field of view. Her audience, initially thrilled by the special effects, began to dwindle, unnerved by the increasingly disturbing content. Adrian, ever the skeptic, tried to rationalize the occurrences as elaborate hoaxes, but even his resolve began to falter when his phone started receiving calls in the dead of night. When answered, he heard nothing but a static-filled silence, punctuated by what sounded like labored, distant breathing. As the group sought to uncover the identity of their tormentor, the initial suspicion of a vengeful peer orchestrating an elaborate ruse began to subside. The nature of the disturbances, their specificity, and their link to Elliot's online footprint slowly led to a horrifying possibility. Were these messages and events somehow orchestrated by Elliot himself, reaching out from beyond the grave? This realization dawned on them gradually, each instance of digital haunting peeling back a layer of their denial. As autumn leaves whispered secrets to the winds, outside Crestwood High, a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air. The once unbreakable bond between Adrian, Lila, Theo, and Jenna had frayed, leaving them adrift in a sea of their own making, haunted by the digital specter they believed to be Elliot. The culmination of this haunting tale unfolded on a night cloaked in expectancy. The four received a chilling summons, an electronic invitation from Elliot's account, a digital echo from beyond the grave. The message was succinct, its implications profound. "Join me at midnight. Let's end this." Whether it was a cruel prank or something far more inexplicable, compelled by a mixture of fear and a desperate yearning for resolution, they connected to the virtual meeting as the clock heralded the midnight hour. Their screens lit up, revealing a familiar yet haunting digital chat room. It was stark, save for their connections and one enigmatic host. In the silence of the chat room, the confrontation began. The host communicated in typed words that flowed like wounds reopening, detailing Elliot's anguish, his despair, and the agony that led to his tragic end. These words, raw and piercing, seemed to transcend their digital medium, striking at the heart of their guilt. Then, the revelations took a darker turn. The host described unseen, posthumous events, intimate secrets of the bullies, exposing their deepest fears. It was as though Elliot, or the entity behind the host, was an omniscient presence, laying bare their souls. The intensity escalated as the chat room transformed into a gallery of their sins. Images and videos of their bullying intermingled with snapshots of Elliot's tormented existence, bombarding them with the brutal reality of their actions. It was an unrelenting confrontation with the consequences of their cruelty. In this moment of reckoning, the host posed a harrowing choice: publicly confess their transgressions or be forever haunted by the weight of their misdeeds. The digital realm around them seemed to warp and twist, mirroring the chaos in their minds. In the depth of the night, as the digital confrontation reached its zenith, each member of the group stood at a crossroads, their screens casting ghostly lights in the darkness. The decision before them was clear yet daunting: confess and confront their guilt, or continue to be haunted by the specter of their actions. One by one, the weight of the truth began to erode their resolve. Lila, her voice barely a whisper, agreed to confess. The realization of her role in Elliot's demise had stripped away her bravado, leaving a raw, vulnerable shell. Theo, silent and introspective, nodded in agreement, his usual stoicism crumbling under the burden of guilt. Jenna, tears streaming down her face, typed a message of consent. The digital domain she had once ruled with calculated precision now seemed like a prison of her own making. It was Adrian, the ringleader, who hesitated longest. His facade of defiance wavered, and after a tense, eternal moment, he too acquiesced. As dawn's first light crept through the windows, the group, once bound by cruelty, now united in their remorse, posted a public confession online. They detailed their relentless bullying of Elliot, their remorse, and their decision to face the consequences. The message went viral, sparking discussions far and wide about the impact of cyberbullying and the invisible scars it leaves. The haunting ceased with their confession. The mysterious messages, the distorted images, the eerie presence in their technology, all disappeared as suddenly as they had begun. Whether it was the work of a vengeful spirit or a more earthly orchestrator remained a mystery, but the lesson was indelibly etched in their lives. In the aftermath, the bullies faced both disciplinary action and a public backlash. But the true punishment was the guilt that would linger in their hearts. They had come face to face with the darkest aspects of technology and humanity, and emerged changed. The story of the digital phantom became a legend at Crestwood High, a cautionary tale about the power of words and the importance of empathy in the digital age. For Adrian, Lila, Theo, and Jenna, it was more than a tale. It was a haunting reminder of a past they could never fully escape. A reminder that in the digital world, actions and words can sometimes have unforeseen and irreversible consequences.